star NFL player that has been persona non grata all year. There is some new information, new updates, whatever you want to phrase it, revelations, if you will, in the Deshaun Watson saga. Now, Watson, who has yet to play for the Texans, who are not only a football team, they're terrible. He's been inactive, getting paid his full salary without any contract bonuses because he can't earn them, as he is now swimming through some very murky legal waters. We hadn't heard much about Watson. I had not. We've not talked about him in a good amount of time. There's been no new information. The story has grown stagnant. But now we have new information. So we are now told that prosecutors have started meeting with some of the many women, the harem of women, that have accused Watson of sexual assault, this in an effort to get interviews for an upcoming grand jury. Now, Amy Dash, who contributes to Fox Sports Radio, she's a sports legal beagle. She passes on that the plan will be to bring the case against Watson in front of a grand jury in January. So we're just a few weeks away now. We're getting closer and closer to that point. Now, the original plan was sometime in December, but with the holidays at the end of the month, it is most likely going to happen in January. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we are getting closer to a new plot twist in the story. They being the people putting the grand jury together, are supposedly waiting for additional evidence before they push forward with the grand jury. So the question is, how concerned should Deshaun Watson be about the upcoming grand jury? So on the MALLER scale of concern, 1 to 10, with 10 being holy cannoli, this is a 25. It's a 25 on the MALLER scale of concern. I'll walk you through this. I've got ham sandwich, Madonna, and entrepreneur. And we'll tie all of these things together, and those will be the building blocks of this MALLER monologue. So, listen, Deshaun Watson's football future and freedom are on the line. And this is the next part of the story. This is the next chapter. It's a page-turner. We've been in the part of the book where it wasn't a page-turner, but it's about to become a page-turner. That grand jury, when they convene, we anticipate in January here, probably earlier January than later January, they will decide what happens next in this story. Will we get a felony criminal indictment against a star NFL player? And Watson is at the mercy of a group of random people who haven't even been selected yet. But based on the stats, and stats tell you what has happened, not what's going to happen, but if you base this on the stats, it is guaranteed that Watson is screwed here at this part of the story. It's as guaranteed as poverty on Skid Row, right? The deck is stacked against Watson stopping this. The way the grand jury works in Texas, and it's different state by state, but in Texas, the rules, and I was reading about this, trying to educate myself, because I figured we'd be talking about this quite a bit. So as I understand it, the grand jury will consider the evidence. That's obvious. That's the same everywhere. And then their decision will be based solely on the evidence presented, on whether or not there is probable cause to believe that, number one, a crime was committed, and as defined by the Texas law, and also, number two, that it was committed, obviously pulled off, committed, however you want to say, by the individual. So the district attorneys have so much power over the grand jury setup that it is essentially the case where it's been said for years, you can indict a ham sandwich. So if you can indict a ham sandwich, you would think this is a fait accompli that Deshaun Watson will be indicted by that grand jury. It'd be a huge upset if he's not. Now, part B of this, as we are learning here, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes jockeying going on right now to avoid the grand jury altogether. Now, it seems like everything's on track. It's highly unlikely that this will be avoided, but Rusty Hardin is a big money, highfalutin, right out of Central Casting, defense attorney. Just when you think of a Texas big boots, cowboy hat, like the stereotype of a Texas highfalutin attorney, that's Rusty Hardin. And so he's casting this thing, and the defense attorney for Deshaun Watson. And so what's going on right now through back channels is the effort to try to pull the rabbit out of the hat and make sure this does not even get to the grand jury, even though everything's pointing that direction. And to say that at the very least, the incriminating evidence, if they get it to a grand jury, at least try to limit the amount of evidence the grand jury sees. That's the other opportunity that is available for the defense. And this is done through political contributions, promises, and other sweetheart deals. That's how the game is played. It's why we often point out those with the money seem to get the breaks, and Watson's got money to pass down to Hardin. If they want to play that game, they can certainly play that game. Now, it's kind of like the lyrics of the old Madonna song, "Oh, Father, I have sinned," right? Or football jargon, it would be the Hail Mary. Now, the Hail Mary every once in a while works. Most of the time, it does not work. So good luck on that. The criminal defense lawyer, in this case, Rusty Hardin, has no power to even question or interview the prospective grand jurors who are going to decide whether or not this story continues and whether or not there is probable cause to believe that a crime, a felony, was committed. The grand jury, as they assemble there in January, they're found the same way that any other jury is found, and most of us do anything we can to get out of a jury. And most people don't ever serve on a jury. It's kind of dumb luck when you end up on one. However, they are selected and placed into service without any kind of screening, is what I'm trying to say. So there's from the defense. Because when you have a regular trial, if you watch any crime shows, you know that the screening process, there's a saying in the legal business that a lot of trials are won by selecting the proper jury. Because you kind of have an idea based on getting background on jurors, which way they are likely to vote in a case. Anyway, so in Texas, a grand jury, here's the other thing that is really problematic for Deshaun Watson. You do not need 100% agreement, from what I understand. And you can have probable cause, but it doesn't have to be 100%. And so only 9 jurors are needed for someone accused to face criminal charges. So the idea that it has to be 100%, when you get a conviction in a criminal trial, it's got to be 100%. But the statute's lower in a grand jury trial, which is another problem for the currently on timeout Texans quarterback. All right, last word here. So Deshaun Watson, at this part of the story, he's playing the waiting game, but he's also running an obstacle course because the grand juries, as we said, we've laid it out for you. It seems like that's a no-brainer that this is going to happen. And then that leads to felony criminal charges. And then that leads to everything getting bogged down even longer. It's one of the reasons that we have been saying that if this goes the way that it's headed, Watson will not play until 2023 at the earliest, at the very earliest. And the only way he can avoid that is if the Hail Mary works. Because if the Hail Mary works and there is no criminal trial, then Watson will have some wiggle room. And at that point, he's still facing a flotilla of civil lawsuits from 22 women. But the fact is that the NFL as a business would say, you know what, he's just an entrepreneur. He opened up his own anaconda petting zoo. And so they'll just say it's irrelevant, right? It'll be brushed aside. They'll claim he had great ingenuity to have the petting zoo. It's a mom and pop operation, he being the pop. Now, the NFL doesn't care about the details as long as it is only a civil matter, not a criminal matter. That's when things get fuzzy at that point. And so it's really just a migraine headache. But if it becomes a criminal situation, it is a spinal fluid leak. It's like a whole bunch of crap. You got to have operational. So the criminal charges, that would be a massive roadblock. That would be a sinkhole in Florida is what that would be. And when all that is cleared away, it opens him up to be traded immediately. Like if the grand jury, let's say the rabbit gets pulled out of the hat and the grand jury says there's not enough to charge Watson, then boom, he will be traded within a week. Probably within a couple of days he'll be traded. So stay tuned. Inquiring minds would like to know what is going to happen next. I love these crime stories.